So here we go. So we're back with another podcast here. And what I'll do is I'll let my guest today introduce himself and kind of what he's known for, and then we'll get started from there. So over to you.
All right. My name is Troy Cartwright, and I guess I'm known for being a country music singer and a songwriter as well. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, it's fine. Just a backstory for myself. So I first listened to Troy, maybe it was in a country favorites playlist on Spotify. So one of his most known songs, Hung Up on You's, we'll be discussing, but that's how it came about. Then I followed him on Instagram and I threw him a DM and now we're here. So I'm
Here we
excited
are.
for it. So I can't wait. So what we'll do is we'll just get started with kind of an overview of the year and kind of how you've dealt with it, because it's been quite a strange year. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, kind of how has it changed your perspective on kind of life? What's your overall feel at the moment?
Yeah. That's a great question. And it's crazy because it feels like it's like stretching to be like a year and a half now that it's been so weird, right? But um yeah, I think from for me from like a musical standpoint, yeah, it's made me think about a lot of things, but it's also just made me thankful, for the things that I do have for, my health and my family, and especially just being home a lot more than I'm used to. It just kind of helped me like shine a little light on my home life, which I think is important and is probably the easiest thing to sort of paper over, right? Because it's always going to be there. So it was nice to kind of invest some time there, and that feels like it's in a good spot. So
That's great. And just as an overview as well, obviously with ourselves, we can still go into like self-isolation and stuff like that, say if you were in contact with someone who had COVID. So was there any
yeah.
TV or movies that kind of helped you through lockdown that pushed you through it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I find myself like I like to watch things that I've watched before. I find a lot of like it's comforting to me for some reason. So I'm obsessed with this TV show called The West Wing, and
Okay.
I've probably watched seasons 1 through 5 of that like maybe 10 or 15 times. I just started it up again. I just if I'm feeling kind of unhinged, I just throw on an episode through that, and I'm like, all right, well, at least I know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the same. So I always watch either The Office, the US or the UK
Of
one.
course, yeah.
And anything that I know, like you say, what's going to happen, it just has that comfort, because I don't know. I always feel like when you start a new show, it's that unknown of like you always have to wait 2 or 3 episodes. Do I like it? Do I know the characters? But
Yeah,
when you can
absolutely.
just drop in at any time, it's perfect. So we'll start with
Yes.
kind of your upbringing here, and where were you born, and what was kind of school life like? What was your overall feel back then?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and lived there pretty much. Well, I lived there from when I was born till I was 18. Then I went away to school for 4 years. Well, really 5 years is how long I was gone, and then I moved back to Dallas for about 4 years, and then I moved to Nashville in 2016. So I guess that's 5 years ago now.
And when you were in school, what was kind of your characteristics? Did you enjoy music back then? Was it something that you wanted to progress as a career? What was your focus then?
Yeah, I think um, I was lucky that I found music. I think I got my first guitar when I was 12, around Christmas time. And then I didn't take to it right away. But I'd always loved music. And then, once I kind of figured out how it worked just a little bit, even that kind of became my thing. And I think that was really, music has always been a big part of my um, identity. So that's been great, because when it's hard when you're 14, 15, 16, hell, when you're 25, like if okay, well, this is me, this is part of who I am, then that can be really helpful. But I would say the flip side of that is sometimes, your career doesn't always go the way you want it to, and that can really sorry, did I lose you there for a second?
No, yeah, we're back.
um that can really be devastating, if you don't get the tour that you want, or the whatever. I mean, there's a million ways that your career can just kind of get sideways. So that part is tricky to figure out.
And that's really your mind working as well. What I find is your mind has expectations, so you might be disappointed in one thing, but it's still a step forward, but it's not as big as one that you maybe wanted. So
absolutely,
like you say, with your music and stuff, was there a certain moment in your life where it was your big focus? Was there a certain day that it clicked? How did that progress?
I don't think I ever wanted to do anything else. So that I always tell people, like, obviously for me, it started with writing songs. When I was 13, I couldn't like tour. But like writing songs is the only thing nobody, told me to do. I was a pretty stubborn kid. So songwriting was really cool for me because I didn't know anybody who knew how to do it. So it was kind of felt like magic to me. That was like, oh man, I can do this. And people were like, whoa, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know how I did that. I just, kind of did it. So that's been a lifetime of figuring out how to, keep doing that and stringing that together. So that was probably the initial step. And then I went to college. I actually majored in like music business. And in between my third and fourth year of college, I basically did an internship like in the music business, not like as a musician, but as kind of like basically I stared at spreadsheets. I mean, it was terrible. And I kind of realized in that summer, I guess, like, wow, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it now. And I need to do it while essentially I can afford to be really poor, which that part turned out to be pretty true. So, but I've made it, I mean, I don't know that I've made it at all, but I've made it through. I've been doing this full time for almost 10 years now. So I guess at that point you kind of got to stop having imposter syndrome and accept that, you do belong here, I guess.
Yeah, I think anytime you're in a Spotify playlist, I think that's one of you made it
Yeah.
chance. You're always going to reach someone new every day. So I think you're up there. I think you're up there.
Yeah.
So as people who's listening might not be well aware of your music, and obviously you've mentioned that you're a country songwriter. How would you describe your music to someone who's a new listener?
I would describe it as I try and make complicated ideas into simple songs that everybody can understand. So that's kind of, I feel like there are a lot of there are artists and songwriters who are good at different things. And I really feel the most like myself, I guess, when I do those kind of songs, so like Hung Up on You, for example, which is my biggest song right now, is like, I mean, it's really just a song about a guy who can't stop thinking about a girl, but I just try to put my own little spin on it,
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
unique about that is you can have the emotions from it either when you're happy or when you're sad, because it has a different spin on it each time when you listen to it. So no matter which mood you're in, you can pop it on.
Yeah. It's, that song has just had such a unique journey, and in it, I haven't talked a lot about kind of what it means to me, and part of that is because I think it means something different to everybody who listens to it, which is the way it should be,
Yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely. And is there any advice that you got, obviously, when you were starting up, that's really stuck with you throughout the 10-year journey?
Well, I think a lot of the advice that I've gotten is like more like kind of ironic looking back at it now. I just remember, I mean, this was way more than 10 years ago. My first guitar teacher, it told me, like, he was in his, I think he was in his 50s or something, and he'd been a musician his whole life. And he looked at me and he just said, if you can do anything else, you should definitely do that. And that always kind of makes me laugh, because I've probably crossed the point of no return. Like, I really don't think I can do anything else. Yeah, so I guess that's advice, right? And then I just remember too, like, I think if you choose any sort of career path that's maybe not traditional, um, you just have to be willing to sort of buck the trend of I think a lot of people that like my parents, friends or stuff like that, they're like, okay, well, you should do this for this amount of time and then you should go get a real job. And my advice to people is just like, don't listen to anybody else. Just listen to your heart. And if it feels right and you feel like you still got room to grow, just keep going. I mean, I've been playing music since I was 14 years old. I'm 31 years old now. And I mean, I don't feel like anything of any consequence ever happened to me until I was 28 or 29. So that was almost 15 years of trying to make it happen. That's a long time.
And with your kind of your genre and stuff, when you're creating a song, what is the starting point? Is it maybe a lyric pops in your mind? Is it a melody that you put together? What's your overall process, or does it just flow naturally?
It tends to flow naturally. I think I would say 80 to 90% of the time now I start with an idea. I kind of have a note, like the notes app in my iPhone.
Yeah.
If somebody will say something that I think is interesting, I'll write it down. And I usually start there, but I try and I call it like honoring the muse. I have this little like statue that's got like, I think it's from India. I don't know if it's a Hindu statue or something. I don't know what it is, but I call it my muse, and I just like try and honor the muse. So if I can every day, I try and sit down for at least 20 minutes and just sort of noodle on the guitar or whatever. And a lot of times something just kind of comes to you, and then it does flow naturally. And those songs are sort of the purest ones, I feel like, because it's like it feels like magic to me. It's coming from something that's a lot bigger than me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. It sounds kind of hippy dippy or something, but I believe it to be true. So
Well, I've spoke to a few people on here who's like musicians or in bands. It just seems like you say, it just either happens and one time it just clicks. So it does take a lot of. I think when people think you write a song, you just write a 2 page worth of lyrics and you get your guitar
yeah,
and pick it up. But it's in different stages, so you might change something because the lyric sounds different with the beat. It's how it flows.
absolutely. Yeah.
So with regards to country music, so in
Mhm.
England and stuff, I don't feel like it's obviously as big as in the US and so on. So how would you describe country music to someone who's maybe never gave it a listen or gave it a go?
Yeah, I think I don't know what the perception is over there, but sometimes people get the perception. It's one that I had growing up where it's like, oh, country music is all about girls and cutoff jeans and beer and trucks. So if I don't relate to that, then it's not for me. But I don't think that that's true at all. I think what has drawn me to country music, and I kind of came to it later in life, is that ultimately I think country music is about telling stories. And so if are into storytelling or whatever, I think country music has a tremendous depth to it. That a lot of people don't realize. And it's not, obviously it's probably not on the radio all the time over there, but country music isn't over here in America. Like, country music isn't everything that you hear on the radio. It's a lot bigger and a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things I've realized personally during, this whole last year and a half, is like, I'm trying to bring some depth. That's kind of what I can bring to the table. I'm trying to bring some depth to country music. So I don't know if it'll work out, but that's what I'm trying to do.
You are right about the stories, because that's what my mum says. She says when you listen to a song, they always have a story and a meaning. It's just not just lyrics, to fit the
Yeah.
narrative. So you do. And I think I started listening to it when I was younger. So when I was like 13 or 14, but I think the older you get, the more you relate to them when you've had the experiences. So then I kind of got back into it in my early 20s, and I was like, oh, I know how that feels. Oh, that's
Hmm.
not just a breakup, or because not every breakup's bad, so it might be a one where it's flipped and you might think it's going to be a song about a bad breakup, but it's a good one. So I always
Yeah.
think it has got the story, and each story you can attach to someone who's listened to it. So that's why I love it. And I find myself it's great when you're either on long drives in the car because it's quite soothing, and they're not all kind of always upbeat, so you get a feel for it there. Or
Yeah.
if you're in bed and you're just trying to chill out, you can pop it on for an hour. So that's my overall feel of it.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
with music and stuff, are you planning to release any new music up and coming? Do you have anything planned for kind of the future?
Yes, I have. I don't think it's announced yet, but I mean, I'm happy to say because it's really soon. But yeah, we have a new song coming out September 17th, and then I have an EP that's going to be 5 songs total, but it'll be 3 new songs, and that's coming out I think October 15th. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm just ready to like just keep the ball moving. It's been a weird time last 18 months or so. So it's just navigating all that has been interesting.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And with like new music and stuff, is it refreshing to
Mhm.
release something new? Do you feel like sometimes maybe
Yes,
in your brain it's a rot of I haven't had something out for so long, maybe I'll lose the attention, is it great to have something fresh that's going to pull a new audience in?
absolutely. And I mean, you got to realize it's hard for me to have the perspective sometimes because for a lot of people hung up on you. I don't know when you heard it for the first time.
Maybe
Maybe it
that
was
about a year ago, no, maybe the end of
yeah,
last year, so like 10 months ago, something like that.
yeah. So I wrote that song in 2016, and it came out. I mean, it took a few years to come out, but like by the time it came out, I was already sort of like, I mean, I write at least 100 songs a year, if not 200. So like to me, it was so old.
Yeah.
And so anytime something new comes out, like for me as an artist, as a creative person, like it's the best feeling in the world. And I've had to learn to be patient, right? Because it's like pretty tricky. I had to realize that a lot of people are still hearing me for the very first time, and it's not old to them. So,
I
but
found it is good to have a song like that though, because if you've got one good song, it hooks you onto going on to say your Spotify
mhm,
profile. So it can seem repetitive, but for someone new, like you say, if they hear that one song that you might have heard 400 million times,
yeah,
but for
yeah,
them it's like, oh, he's good. I'll press on there. And that's especially how it worked for me as well. And
yeah,
with your touring and stuff, have you started touring? I noticed you did a few dates recently, the last month or so. Is that a big
yeah,
focus coming up once things start to get normal, whenever that is?
yeah. We're probably today or tomorrow we're gonna announce like the EP is called Halfway to Houston, so we're announcing this Halfway to Houston tour, and it's mostly just um, stuff around. Well, it's all within like 6 or 7 hours of Nashville, just a lot of South Carolina, Georgia, stuff like that. But yeah, you're kind of touching on it. Like it's just a weird time right now. You really don't know like what's. Sometimes it's tricky because you're like, am I doing the right thing by touring? Like
Yeah.
but I don't know what the answer is. You just kind of try and stare in the mirror and go, does this feel okay? Yeah, it feels okay. All right, let's just try it and see what happens.
You are right with it
So
being a weird time. Like sometimes it feels like it's just a normal day, and then you remember that it's slightly different somewhere else. It's really like in England, it's really crazy. It's kind of normal, but it's not fully normal. If you get me, it's like
yeah, yeah.
it's a
I mean,
mixture.
is it I guess y'all kind of had the Delta stuff before us, right? So is it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it more normal now or is it still bad?
So we had all that at the start of this year, so we went back into lockdown again to like the April.
Uh-huh.
And it's been every month they've opened something new. So now nightclubs are back open, which is really weird when you go and stuff like that. Bars are open.
Yeah.
The masks are you don't have to wear them, but it's still advised to. So it is kind of normal, but it's also strange as well because you just forget sometimes. It's
Yeah.
crazy. The last 18 months has just been crazy.
Yeah, yeah, that's about how it is here. I mean, in Tennessee and Texas where I'm from, like I guess it's quite bad right now, but there's no I just don't think it'll ever go backwards at this point. I don't think that the public will like take they just can't take it. And I don't people have all these opinions or whatever. It's just like, dude, like I don't fault anybody. Like this stuff is weird right now. I don't have any idea what the right answer is.
No, I was the same. I was just, whatever happens, it'll happen.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get stressed about anything because I can't change anything in my room. So just
Exactly.
see what happens, see what happens.
Yeah.
And lastly, for this kind of section was, do you have any advice for someone who's wanting to get a career in music and really progress? Is there any tips that you could provide?
Yeah, I would say my best tip is to just like start walking. I think a lot of people, when they want to start a business or start a new hobby, they think, oh, I've got to have the right, let's just take music as an example. I got to have the right guitar. I got to have the right producer, the right song, this, that. You feel like you got to have all these things lined up. And like the reality is like, you definitely don't. Just try and, if you want to be an artist, then try and record a song,
Yeah.
try and write a song, like just start. And once you start walking, a lot of those things fall into place. And I mean, sometimes it literally takes years, but you don't need permission to get started. I guess that would be
Yeah.
my soundbite advice.
Yeah, I think the walking part's great because it doesn't just happen overnight, as you know yourself. So, and even if
Yeah,
the first song doesn't go as good as maybe you thought, just do another one. Don't put the pressure on yourself, because I feel like anything you do, if you put pressure on yourself, if it doesn't go well, you just start to crumble and it really demotivates you.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
so like you say, just leaving that up there and just take it one step at a time, because you'll know everyone's is different, everyone's journey. They might get famous after a year, they might get famous after 10, 30 years. But if you
Yeah,
put in the work, there's nothing stopping you from doing your part of that kind of progression.
that's right. Yeah, I mean, and like I feel like this is true for the music industry, and it's probably true for a lot of things. It's like the to me, the name of the game is like survival. So if you just survive long enough, like dumb stuff happens all the time. And like usually it's dumb stuff like in a good way. Like the thing like Hung Up on You being my biggest song is like not what I would have predicted 3 years ago. But that's just how it happened. So and that's awesome, like, but it wasn't the way that I drew it up.
Yeah,
So you just never know how it's gonna go.
great. And the next part was going to be Hung Up on You. You probably get asked all the time about it. I'm sorry,
No,
Troy.
no, 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 that's fine. I'm happy to answer.
So, what was the overall backstory of when you first wanted to write this song? Obviously, you don't have to go into too much detail, but what was the overall thought progression when you thought, I'm going to put this onto the piece of paper as lyrics?
Yeah, well, it's kind of an interesting story. So I had been seeing it's a little, I'll tell you the long version. We're on a podcast, why not? So I'd been seeing this girl for a long time that I really liked. And she was in school, we were long distance, and I was living in Dallas and at the time. And I said, well, if you could get a job in Dallas or Houston, which is another big city in Texas, or in Nashville, I'll move, or just come to Dallas, we'll figure it out. Well, she called me and she said, I got a job in Nashville. And I was like, man, I guess I'm gonna have to move to Nashville. Like, she's really calling my bluff right now, but I said I would do it. But I was so scared. I grew up in Dallas. Like I had a career as a musician there, and I knew Nashville. I mean, it's country music, but I didn't know where I would fit in that machine. So I moved to Nashville, and then I started co-writing. I Up to that point, I'd written most songs by myself. So I started getting set up to write with other people, and Hung Up on You was one of the very first songs I wrote with other people. And it was this husband and wife duo named Solomon and Lauren Olds. And I just went over there, and he actually had like a loop of that kind of like the chorus chords. He kind of had that going. And I was looking through my phone, and I was like, well, I had this idea like Hung Up on You. And I think what's cool to me about that song is it was written by three people who were like trying to write the idea of what we thought a country song should be, but we didn't really know what we were doing. We were all pretty like new to trying to write like a mainstream country song. So I think that's why it kind of sounds familiar, yet there's some like intangible quality about that song that makes it different, you know?
Yeah.
And that song, once I got it back, really opened up a lot of doors for me in Nashville as far as like getting a record label and stuff like that. And so it's just been this journey, you know, that's going on 5 years now, and you know, it's cool. I'm really thankful for it.
Awesome. And when did it start to pick up? Obviously, because it's got, well, on here I've got 13 million streams on Spotify.
Yeah.
I think it was around that. When did it start? Did it one day pick up more than normal? What was the overall pattern of that?
It was pretty bizarre. It was April of 2020. I woke up and I was on Instagram, and somebody had tagged me. They were like, wow, congrats, Troy, like you're on Hot Country, which is like, I think Hot Country is like it's the biggest country playlist in the world, and I think it's like one of the top 5 biggest playlists on Spotify.
Yeah.
And so yeah, at that point, I mean, it went from, I don't know, at one point it was getting like 180,000 streams a day, and that was just like, I mean, it was like pure serotonin, man. It was so cool. But then I'll be honest with you, it kind of got scary, because you're going like, well, this isn't going to last forever. You know, you're not going to stay on this big playlist forever. So then you're halfway into your journey, and I was starting to freak out about, well, how's it going to end? You know, I was kind of sabotaging myself mentally a little bit. So, but that was kind of when it started to really take off, and now it's kind of just, what's cool. What I wish I could tell myself back then was like, yeah, man, this is a big wave, but like it still gets, you know, over 10,000 streams a day, and it's not on any playlist really anymore. So, you know, it's all good, man. It's been a fun journey, and I needed to just enjoy it.
Well, I'm probably about 5,000 of those streams. So
I appreciate that.
But that playlist that I was told you that I found you on, I think it was near the bot. There was about 70 on. I think it was about 68. But then when I went back on the other week, I think it's number 3 or 4 now. So
okay,
you might hit another little peak.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier about the song being kind of happy and sad. Was that intentional when you were writing the lyrics, or did it just flow like that?
It kind of just flowed like that. Like I think I was probably coming from it a little bit from a sad place, but also I look back at pretty much every relationship I've had that didn't work out, and like I'm still thankful for it. I still kind of smile. A lot of it, you know, things don't work out, and it's usually for the best, you know, but it doesn't mean that those memories weren't good. It just means they weren't for forever.
I think the beat helps with the guitar helps with the lyrics, because it is an upbeat song, so it sounds like it's going to be, you know, all happy, but then it does have, when you listen to the lyrics more and more, it does have that feel. So I think that does help. That's not just a slow song on like an acoustic guitar. And just how does it feel knowing that people listen to your music every day? Is that like a feeling that never gets old? Does it feel surreal?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely surreal. I think you kind of I truly mean this. I try and never ever take it for granted. Because I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this like a long time, and there have definitely been some really dark times where you're just wondering if you're wasting your are you wasting your time even trying, you know? And so I've every time I release a new song, or somebody tells me, you know, they listen to Hung Up on You or something different, you know, comments on a YouTube video or whatever, like it really means a lot to me.
Great. And the next part's going to be I always go through this part with the people, because this is the main reason that I set the podcast up. So one of the big things from this year was that I really tackled my mental health side of things, and I stopped kind of putting it to the back of my mind. So to just give you an overview, the reason I set it up was simply because at the start of the year with the lockdown and stuff, I was feeling really, really bad, insecure, with regards to like hair loss and so on. And I just made a big leap, and I took off all, I used to have a big fringe, so I took all the hair off, and I just made it one less worry. And ultimately, when I put that online, people really responded to it and came to me about other problems that they have. And I think it's easy in your mind to just think you're the only who has a worry or has an insecurity, simply because your mind tells you that you're the only one. So I was wondering for yourself, is there any situations where maybe you've overcome or overcome daily of kind of mental health situations?
Oh yeah. I mean, I struggle really bad still with like anxiety and depression. And I mean, I have for, well, looking back, it's been, ever since I was a teenager, but it wasn't until maybe 8 or 9 years ago that I realized that like anxiety was even like a thing. I remember the first time I talked to like a therapist or whatever, they were like explaining to me what it was I was feeling, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I'm not alone. I thought I was just broken, you know." And I think music has always helped me kind of navigate that, but I struggle, a lot. I think with 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 the music industry, with the country music particular that I'm in, like I really struggle with kind of like comparison and comparing myself to, I mean, especially on social media, you see your buddy over here living their best life, playing for 5,000 people, and they're singing their songs back. And sometimes I'll be on the road and I'll have just played for 1,000 people or 200 people, and I look at them and I say, oh man, like look at them, they're playing to 5 times as many people as me. And then I start to feel bad, and it's just, that's torture. That's crazy to do that. I've really tried to work on that and stop myself from kind of playing that comparison game, if you will. And it, I'm, of course I'm not perfect at it, but I don't know, admitting it's the first step, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The case for me was pretty much the same as you. So I was always self-conscious, but I don't think I ever knew really why or what my mind was telling me. It was just a thing, like you say, where you just get used to it. It's just, oh, it's just me being broken. It's just my worry, and
Yeah.
no one else even notices anything. But to you, it's the end of the world. And just the coping mechanisms of listening to music, throwing yourself into something new, something refreshing. Because even if you do an activity that you do all the time, it's not refreshing to your mind because your mind's used to that cycle. So if I went on the Xbox for an hour and then came off, I'd still be sad because I haven't changed or refreshed my brain. But if I go for a walk and it's slightly different, the mind might switch off to a different way. So that was one thing. And like you said, how do you really cope with it? If you had maybe a bad day, is there anything that comforts you or anyone who you speak to?
Yeah, I think like it's funny you say that. Like I really like find like the more that I have kind of physical, I don't know, exercise, that really helps me a lot. If I walk a lot. I have like a Peloton that I do a lot. So if I'm having a bad day and I'm feeling really, I kind of get in these like catastrophe spirals where I get really frustrated about something, and I'll, and I have like I have like a manager and a booking agent and stuff, and like sometimes I'll just get really frustrated and I'll want to call them and be like, why is this way? And a lot of times I try and just like go for a walk or get on the Peloton, and like I end up feeling like a lot better afterwards and realize like, okay, it's fine. It's no big deal. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that matters, but it seems to help me.
It is your brain. I feel like it's just your brain always. I don't know how you'd explain it. It is your brain overworking itself. And the
Yeah.
less you do and the more you sit there, you're not being proactive. So that's great. And I appreciate you speaking about that, because it is something that, like you say, a country artist, people might look at your Instagram and think, oh, he's playing shows all the time. He must never get sad or worried. And it's not the case. It's just the
No,
social
man,
media side of things can be really deceiving to people if you're in a bad way, to think, why is everyone happy, or why do they never have any
yeah,
problems, if that makes sense.
absolutely. And I think, I mean, when you reached out, I was really happy to come on. Like, I haven't quite figured out like how to, you know, talk about it on a big scale, but like, I mean, I really believe like mental health is so important, and it's been so life changing to me. Like, I felt so alone for so long. So like, even when I was in college and went to like talk to somebody for the first time,
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty life changing for me. And I don't know how to like advocate for it on a big level. Like, I haven't quite figured out that piece of the puzzle yet, but I'm very passionate about, because I think just talking about like, oh, I have depression, I have anxiety,
Yeah.
I'm worried about this. Like, I feel like just that alone like makes people realize like, oh man, it's not just me,
Yeah.
it's not all
Absolutely.
roses out here.
Absolutely. And there was a question here which I thought might be quite interesting, was, is there something that you could tell yourself and looking back as maybe a younger artist, that might be a good piece of advice that you might have been worrying about 10 years ago and stressing about? Is there something that you could go back and say?
Yeah, and I think I have this song that I wrote. It's not out yet, but it's called A Field Guide for Growing Up. And when I play it live, I always introduce it as like, you know, if there's one thing I could go back and tell like 16-year-old me, is that I would just tell them like, it's all gonna be okay. Like that's the biggest piece of advice. Like, everything I've ever worried about has has never like, it's always worked out just fine, and usually for the better. I have we just moved, so I found like an old notebook from college, and I had written down all these worries that I had at the time, like in a list.
Yeah.
And it was just funny to read them because, like, they all worked out. And some of them were like, is Angela going to talk to me again? And like, she never did, but it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. Life goes on. You just you get over it.
That's all right. That is that. Even if something doesn't work out, you can still be happy after it. It's not just a case of, if it doesn't work out, the world's going to end. Like you say, if someone doesn't look at you or smile at you one day, that's
Yeah,
one little thing in a 24-hour day. So
that's
you're
right.
right about that. And the last bracket here I had was kind of the social media side of things, because I know you do
Hmm.
post on TikTok,
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Is that a key focus for you, obviously, to grow your name and as a brand as well as an artist?
Man, I think it's such a it's so important as an artist and growing your brand, and it's also so hard on your mental health. And I do not know I've not found the correct balance. That is for sure. But you know, I I think it's important, and I think it for different artists or different people. Like, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And there's also no like guidebook for exactly how you should do it. So I try and spend more time. I'm happiest on social media when I spend more time creating and less time consuming.
Yeah.
But with TikTok, it's really dangerous because, I mean, I can just spend an hour on there, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but one thing, I guess I'll say this is like, I've worried less. I've gotten better at worrying less about. I just put stuff out, and sometimes it does awesome, and sometimes it does nothing. And like with TikTok in particular, like, I can't really predict that, but I just try not to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
throw stuff up there, and if it works, it's awesome. If it doesn't, like, nobody cares.
Like at the end of the day, like you say, it's out of your hands once you've pressed published anyway. So
That's
if you're
right.
sitting worried about it being on other people's screens, you can't control that. You can't have anything to do with that. So that's a good outlook to have. And are you trying to build a positive community for your fans? Is that something that you really like to really push as well, for maybe if they want to send you a message, if they weren't feeling so great, just to reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. I try and always, kind of respond to people. I probably honestly haven't express that sentiment as much as I could. But yeah, I think my latest song is a song called Shine on Me, and it's sort of about like the struggle of life and kind of believing in yourself and believing that it will work out. And um, I've gotten a lot of messages from people about that, and it just, it means a lot to me, because man, that's why I wrote it. I wrote it for me, but I kind of wrote it for everybody to try and understand. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. And do you have any advice for anyone who was struggling with the social media side of things as just a person, as a human? Like you say, you can find yourself an hour on TikTok, and that might be an hour's
Yeah.
production. Is there any tips for anyone that maybe might be struggling about images, about how they feel posting, comparing themselves?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I think first of all, I think it's really easy to say, "Oh my gosh, I was on TikTok for an hour," and beat yourself up over it. But it's okay. It happens, Sometimes you had a bad day, and that's going to make you feel better. I think as far as comparing yourself or whatever, like, just what I try and tell myself is that, like, someone else's success does will never take away from my success. It's not like there's a finite amount of this pie, and if someone's taking a huge slice, I get a smaller slice. It doesn't work that way, you know?
Yeah.
So if somebody's getting more likes than you, like, whatever, it's their time to shine, and maybe you'll get yours. And if it's really bothering you, just take a break. That's can be really helpful too. Just take a I think, especially with Instagram stories, I hate when I don't have a story up and it has the little plus, up there on your story.
Yeah,
Like,
in the corner.
it really eats at me. I'm like, oh, I gotta have something there every day. But I've tried to just let it go, because sometimes I don't have a lot of stuff to say. So it's okay. It's the world is not in because I don't have a story up. I promise.
You're right. And with the people that you compare yourself to, they might be comparing themselves to someone else. So for all you know,
Absolutely.
it's a triangle. They're not sitting there content. I feel like everyone's got something on the mind, whether they talk
Yeah.
about it or not. So if you're worrying about something that, like you say, out of your control, about how many people's going to like your photo on a certain day, it's not something that you should be using your energy on. You should be using it on something productive, which might help you and you can control. And that was the main thing with that. And there was a question here which I thought of just this morning was, do you have any goals that you'd like to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years that maybe you want to tick off as a list, maybe from when you were younger?
Yeah. I love setting goals. So I think um, for me, like in the short term, I have like some number specific goals for like these releases that I have coming out, like trying to get this song I have coming out called Breaking Every Heart in Texas. I'm like, goal one is like get to 1 million streams on that song. And then I have like some kind of like touring based goals. I think like right now we're in a van and in a trailer, and I'd really like to get up to a bus someday soon. That's kind of like a medium 3 to 5 year goal, and then I think there's just like some goals that I have for myself too, as far as like I I have a great band, and I would love to like get to a place where I could like take care of them more.
Yeah.
It's a hard industry, especially if you're a guitar player or drummer. So one of my goals is to like be able to take care of them, and by virtue of that, like take care of my family more, because my wife works very, very hard, and a lot of times it feels like like she works really hard, and she kind of works hard so that like I can do the thing that I love. So I really want to take the thing that I love and turn it into something that can kind of make it so she can do some things that she loves, because she just is a lawyer and works very long hours, and I'm very, very thankful for her, but it feels a little unfair sometimes.
That's amazing. And listening to them, it's refreshing to hear they're not just goals for yourself, and they include other people as well, which is a really nice thing to hear. So
Yeah.
to end every podcast, I have a section called If You Had to Choose Three. So there'll be
Okay.
there'll be some topics that come up, and just the first three things that come to mind in that kind of topic, that maybe you'll enjoy for either the rest of your life or some of your favorite things. So
Sure.
the first one we have is, if you choose three fast food items or home cooked meals, homemade meals, if you had to pick three, what would be your favorites?
Oh, well, I can just go off of what I eat the most. So I don't know if you have this over there. I eat so much Chipotle.
We've just started getting them. I think it's 2 or 3.
Okay. Yeah. So Chipotle is good. And then I love going to the sports bar and eating chicken wings and fries and having a couple beers. That is like my like nirvana, is just that. If there's a football game on, even better, And then let's see, my third favorite thing would just be, I just love a good cheeseburger from anywhere. Same thing, kind of like from a pub or whatever. Like, I just like bar food, I guess. So I don't know what that says about me, but
No, I'm the same. They're all ideal.
Yeah. Yep.
So we've got, the next one was 3 drinks, whether it's alcoholic or not.
Yeah, number one, definitely Coors Light.
Oh yeah.
I love Coors Light. I love having 2, and I love having 10. It doesn't really matter to me. 10's probably a little aggressive, but you never know. And then I drink let's see, soda water. It's a big one for me. I don't know if you have LaCroix over there, but it's just like flavored soda water. I usually just drink this one's just plain. And then I don't know. Oh, coffee. What am I talking about? I probably have to put coffee number 1. So yeah, I love coffee. I love caffeine.
Perfect. And the last one's 3 destinations to visit, whether you've been before or you want to visit as a new place.
Yeah, number 1 on my list, I've been to Europe a few times, but I've never seen the Mediterranean. So I'd really like to see that. And then I love the mountains. My mom and my sister and my dad, they all live in Utah now. And I just love that kind of climate, I guess. And then I would love to go to Tokyo. That's number 3.
Tokyo.
Yeah, I thought I went to Manila one time, and we connected through Tokyo, and I was very excited. And it turns out like the airport is like 150 miles from Tokyo. So like I've never seen it, and I would really like to.
I think about 50% of the podcast guests have said Tokyo, to be fair. I think
Really?
that is one of the bucket list destinations for most people. So that'll be the... No, I do want to go to Tokyo, and I'm trying to think where else I was saying before I wanted to go. Oh, Toronto, Canada. I really want to go to Toronto, and Chicago. They're some of the key ones that I want to try and get to when we can get on planes, whenever that's going to be. I don't know when that is going to be. I might be 40. I don't know. So this is covered to the end of the podcast. So just to end the podcast, Troy, is there anything that you want to leave as like a lasting message, just for people to maybe check you out on Spotify, just something for the listeners to feel from?
Yeah. Well, please check me out, listen to my music. I'm pretty responsive to like DMs or whatever. So if you love something or got a question about a song or about my life or whatever, like, ask away. I'm happy to answer. And just be kind to everybody. It's hard out here, guys. So I just be kind. That's my parting wisdom.
Amazing. Thanks very much for coming on, Troy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's fine. No worries. And thanks for everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.